Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Asian Hustle Network podcast. Today, we have a very special guest with us. His name is AJ Rafael. AJ, singer, songwriter from Moreno Valley, California, with over 1 million subscribers on YouTube and 600,000 followers on TikTok. AJ was recognized as a Filipino American game changer by the city of Los Angeles in 2017. His debut album, Red Roses, charted on Billboard and at number 4 on the pop iTunes charts. AJ continues to make music and upload videos as he did when he first started back in 2006. He is also active in the theater world, performing and music directing in theaters around the United States, such as East West Players and American Repertory Theater. AJ started a podcast with his fiancee, Alyssa, called Sweet or Savory, where they debate topics like, is peanut butter sweet or savory? And can you be friends with your ex? Now out on all platforms. AJ, welcome to the show.
Hey everyone. Thanks for having me, Maggie, Brian. Appreciate y'all.
Of course, AJ, you're such a legend. I personally
Uh,
have been following you for a very long time now, right? And I think I mentioned to you last time we met in person, which is like early pandemic, that I'm like, whoa, I can't believe I'm talking to you right now because it's absolutely an honor, right? And now we have you in the podcast. And AJ, I want to give our audience a quick intro on who you are, where'd you grow up at, and what was your upbringing like?
yeah, sure. Well, yeah, it's an honor to be part of this. I love what y'all started on Facebook, the Asian Hustle Network. Appreciate all the connections that y'all have made in your time as well in the community. But yeah, so I started off as a young lad. I'm 5 years old. I remember playing piano, and my dad was my first teacher, and I played a lot of classical music. I loved playing Disney music. Unfortunately, when I was 10, my dad, who was a choir conductor, composer, he passed away, and I was almost kind of uh, like I felt like I had to take over his legacy. And this is me as a 10-year-old little kid. I played piano for his funeral. My mom took over, him being a choir director, and I became the pianist. So we essentially took over his one job, became two. Me and my mom were like partnership. We were playing at the churches that he had left behind. And I also had two sisters who one was only 6 months old when my dad died, and then the other we're a year and a half apart, and we were like best friends growing up. And every one of us loved music, you know. So fast forward a little bit, I'm 14 years old, and my auntie, who is my dad's sister, gifts me a guitar, and I write my first song. And the song is called How's San Diego, Polly, which is a song I wrote for someone that I met online, which back then was very weird. I met her on a website, similar to like an Asian Avenue or a Friendster. Nowadays it's very common. But I wrote this about her. We met up in real life, and that song became a quote unquote hit on my MySpace page. And it was before MySpace Music even existed. So I had to upload it myself with a real player, HTML code, JavaScript, or whatever it was. And I remember it kind of catching fire throughout my high school. I had a show in my backyard. People were singing along to the lyrics. It was crazy, So that's kind of like the beginning of music from my heavy influence from my family, a lot of choir music, things like that, leading up to me writing my own music, which was pop inspired, rock inspired, but also has like a musical theater, like Disney feel as well sometimes. Then I discovered YouTube in 2006. And since then, I've just been kind of like still going. It kind of feels like a never ending hustle,
Yeah, I mean, your dad must be so proud of you, like right now, and what you have achieved.
Thanks, man.
You have achieved so much, and yes, you've been so consistent on YouTube for so long now, right? And I don't know, I just have a distinct memory of running into you in like 2014 or something at like a bar in like Fullerton. And
No
like my
way.
entire group of friends went crazy. They're like, oh my God, it's AJ. I was like, who's AJ? I gotta look into some more. I know your music and your sound at that moment, but I'm just
Yeah,
like, oh man, meeting you in person at that moment
that's cool.
and being you 7 years later, I'm like, dang, this is
You know what's
awesome.
cool, Brian, is that I still get that same reaction today from like, you know, a similar moment to you and your boys in the bar. I just had that at Dave and Buster's like a couple weeks ago with some dudes, and they bought me a drink and they were so hyped. You know, they're like, I've been listening to you since middle school and stuff. So the impact really has been meaningful for me to see tangibly when I see friends get excited, when I meet the people at boba shops or whatever, or even the cashier at a place who hooks me up with a free meal because my music meant something to them.
I love it. I love it. And again, if I run into you again, drinks are on me. You got it?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that was me imposing for a free drink.
I'm just kidding. Kidding. So AJ, I know that you got most of your inspiration when you were 10 and 14. Nowadays, what inspires you to continue moving forward and creating music? Because for us and a lot of people who are in the creative space, it is a lot of work, right? It's a lot of mental preparation. It's a lot of skills you have to upgrade, a lot of things you have to be aware of. But like, how do you find your inspiration nowadays?
I'm inspired a lot by the thoughts of having a future family, you know, wanting to build, you know, a house together with my fiance, like things like that have been inspiring me as of late. And I never really thought about those things 5-6 years ago. You know, I just wanted to keep going in the moment. And I have to give credit to my fiance Alyssa, of course, for she's a very like you know, organized planner type person. I'm a very in the moment type person, spontaneous, you know. And the fact that she thinks about the future a lot has me thinking about the future a lot and how to, you know, make moves that bring a positive future for us, and that includes maybe having kids down the line and things like that. So recently that has been inspiring me. Of course, my music, my album Red Roses, the music after that and things like that, we're all inspired by like real life events, things happening now, being heartbroken, being in love, and writing those things down. Of course, as an artist, I always want to keep that fresh as well in my mind. But now it's about things that are bigger than me. You know, it's about like my dog who's sleeping here on this bed, you know, like things like that, which is really cool. And seeing my friends as well grow up, having families, that stuff really inspires me. And specifically, if we're bringing it back to music, like my peers like Jeremy Passion and Gabe Bondoc, they, you know, fellow Filipino American songwriters who came up on YouTube the same way I did. They have families and they are, you know, thriving. It's really cool to see.
That's so amazing. I mean, just when you're talking about Alyssa and family and everything like that, I can just see your eyes glistening. And just watching your videos, it can definitely show us that you're such a family oriented person, and that matters so much. And I just love seeing your content when it involves, you know, your family and Alyssa. You know, both of you guys are just so family oriented. Tell us how you met Alyssa, and you know, congratulations to Alyssa for getting on 30 under 30. That's such an amazing accomplishment.
Yes.
We've been seeing a lot of content from the both of you, and I know on TikTok you guys did an impromptu duet where you guys had sang the Mulan song Reflection, and that got extremely viral.
Yeah, it's like at 10 million views.
Yeah. And I kind of want to know as well, like, when did you guys start deciding like, oh, look, let's just do these duets and see how it goes? Like, how did that conversation even start? And when did you guys decide to start singing together?
Yeah, okay, so I'll take it back. I mean, we met at an audition for Disneyland. She was already working at the parks as Mulan for a show called Mickey and the Magical Map. And we had just sparked a conversation. And she said she was familiar. Sorry about my dogs, by the way. We have 5 dogs in here. Literally seven humans and 5 dogs. So imagine when the doorbell goes off, it's chaos.
Wow, 5 dogs.
No worries.
Yeah, so well, so we meet at this audition and we just become online friends after that, because I actually found a tweet that she had posted saying that, oh, I was at an audition with AJ Rafael. And I have my saved searches on my Twitter that my name, see if anyone's talking shit. But mostly, to also, give love to whoever is talking about me without adding me. And luckily, future me would be happy that that happened, because years later we end up connecting online again through Facebook, because she invited me to her college graduation party, and I showed up. Like, I just came. Literally, like, and I came with my friend Billy, and her mom answers the door, and her mom is so confused. She's like, "Oh my God, is AJ Rafael is here?" Like, literally, that's her. And now it's funny because I live here in this house. But we end up just kind of talking, and we end up, I guess, falling in love, a couple months later after that. And that was a really important time in my life, because I was also just coming off of a YouTube / show hiatus that I took for mental health reasons and a lot of personal reasons. And I took a break from the scene. So it was really cool to meet her during that time. To re-meet her after briefly connecting, years prior to that. Anyway, fast forward, she's an amazing singer, and I always encourage her to sing more whenever she can. And she is doing some covers of me on YouTube, as we, in our first couple years. But when the pandemic happened, she's in a corner over here in my studio room in our apartment in Glendale, and I just start playing the piano. And this happened a lot before that video went viral, where I'm just playing piano and she sings. So one day I just wanted to record it, and she sings Reflection like she could do that show with her eyes closed, the show at Disneyland. So she sings it so beautifully all the time, and I just caught the perfect moment. And then it evolved into us doing work from home duets, singing covers and things like that, which was really cool. And to be honest, it's a dream for me to um, I guess, quote unquote, work with, my partner, and we're kind of building, I don't know, an empire. I know that sounds really drastic, but building this thing together, and people know us together. And anytime I get recognized now, it's like, hey, congrats on your engagement. Even till now, even though that engagement happened in December 2020, right? Like, people are still, they're excited that I'm in love. They're excited that I found somebody, and they're excited that Alyssa is doing all these really amazing things on her own, So that was kind of, yeah, that's like the story of how we ended up getting here, and doing all these singing videos together. So we're so happy to work with each other and play shows together and things like that.
So amazing. I mean, you guys balance each other so well. And I love the fact that when they see you, they mention, it's not just about you now, it's about you and Alyssa, because you guys are just such a big power couple. And I love seeing, the fact that you guys just support each other so much when there's accomplishments that Alyssa has in her life, like you uplift her and amplify those accomplishments so much, and vice versa. And I just love the balance that you two have together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for saying that. I mean, it's very cool. She works diversity inclusion at Walt Disney Studios, and so we are all essentially our purpose in the world is the same, even though we have different jobs. We want a more inclusive world. We want a world where Asian Americans and underrepresented communities are being lifted up, and I do that through my art. She does that through her work at Disney, and also through art that I hopefully encourage her to do more of, like the YouTube videos we make and all that stuff. We're a good team. Yeah.
I know that we're an Asian Hustle Network podcast. We like to talk about creatives and entrepreneurs, but I want to ask this question. What is the secret to a successful relationship? Because it sounds amazing, and a lot of us need to hear this.
Yeah, well, we recently started a podcast called Sweet or Savory, and it started on the question of, is peanut butter sweet or savory? And of course, it's a really funny kind of question. But we get into a lot of communication things, and in the way we debate. Like, in our first year or two, we probably wouldn't be able to have a podcast like this, because we would just be fighting. You know what I mean? But over the years, it has been really about communication and letting each other know how we feel. And I had a lot of kind of baggage, I guess, with my previous relationships that we both had to overcome together, but I wasn't ready to hear some things, or things like that. But as long as you're talking out through it and you're willing to be there for the growth in a specific area, then that will make the relationship successful, at least from my experience with Alyssa. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for being so open and transparent with us. Communication is key, guys. Talk to your
Absolutely.
partner.
It really, really is. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm gonna bring the story back to you for a bit and talk about your first viral hit. I want to hear about like what was the viral hit, what was going through your mind as the numbers was increasing like crazy, and you were becoming more like a household name, right? And it's like, well, like, could you sleep that night? What was going through your emotion? What's going through your mind? And you're like, man, what is next? Like, what can I do to top this one? I want to hear all about that story.
Sure, sure. There are a couple of moments. The first one is a video that I did with Kathy Nguyen called Lucky. It was a cover of Jason Mraz, Colby Clay song. And, Colby Clay was really big on MySpace at that time. And obviously Jason Mraz is a huge mainstream artist. So us doing that cover, it made sense. But also there was a certain like musical chemistry that Kathy and I had that led to more collaborations down the line, and her being a lifelong friend of mine. But in that video, it's a funny video. I'm playing guitar. I run into the shower door. We're in a bathroom, so there's a lot of comments about us being in a bathroom, things like singers also know that acoustics are the best in the bathroom, all these things that looking back on it, it's like, man, what a perfect formula we did, even though we didn't think about any of that stuff. We tried to film a video on the street that night, but it was getting dark, and we're like, F it, we'll just put the video camera right here. And it was a video camera. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a DSLR or an iPhone or anything. And we do that, and then we upload it right away because I was just kind of so fast at like editing back then already on my MacBook or PowerBook or whatever it was. And yeah, seeing the videos views grow on that was the next whole week was really, really cool, because I was also watching subscriber count as well. So I don't know exactly the numbers. It must have been something like through that video, I had gained like 100,000 subscribers back in the day. Like something ridiculous where I was just like, man, this is amazing. I was really grateful that that had happened. And I was in a time where I had also, I left Berklee College of Music. And I was like, man, I left school. I was there for 2 semesters, and I'm trying to make money as a musician. What am I doing? And so I had so many thoughts in my mind. I'm thinking like, oh, am I like a real artist now? All these things, Anyway, I just kept doing my thing. And it wasn't until 2010 when I had a music video with Wong Fu Productions. And it was called When We Say. And it was a really, really fun music video that I did. And it got 250,000 views in one day. And I remember Kev Jumba, big online personality, especially at that time. He texted me. It was like, dude, this is viral. You hit 250,000 views. At that time was huge. And I was like, whoa, what do I do with this? What happens, right? This is crazy. With all that in mind and that context, I then get emails in my inbox about attending showcases for real record labels. So Atlantic, some other ones. I did 3 showcases right after that video. But during that time, I didn't really dress like an artist. I didn't have management, so I didn't have anybody telling me what to do with this showcase. I had no guidance. We literally, me and my band, we showed up. Thank God they had like some instruments there because we didn't bring everything, and we played. And I chose the weirdest combination of songs for each of the ones. I was just also, I'm trying to show off that I know how to play the piano. Like, I I'm glad it happened that way because I wouldn't be where I'm at now. But it's almost like, man, I really wish that I had some people to almost look up to, at least to ask how to deal with that stuff. And unfortunately, being one of the first in my community, that's some of the obstacles that we had to kind of go through. So that was my first taste of like mainstream, traditional kind of industry feel. And I actually never went back. Like I've never done any kind of label showcases and just continued on my own path, which I have taken a lot of pride in doing my own thing. And even though all my titos and titas and stuff want to see me on The Voice or American Idol and things like this, I always just shoot them a YouTube video or shoot them my latest music video. And I'm like, well, I hope, this is enough, because this is also part of my legacy and the brand that I built.
Wow, I love that story. I just wanted to like appreciate how just transparent you were with that story, because a lot of the times when we're starting out, and this doesn't only have to apply to musicians and artists, but whenever you're starting out with any hustle, right, you really don't know where to start. And
Yeah.
that was exactly what you were going through. Like you had no guidance, but you just showed up and hoped for the best. And luckily they had, some instruments there. But if it turned out any other way, maybe, you wouldn't really have the same future, right? And you really had to like dive deep and just go with the flow and just go do it to really know how it's going to turn out. And the fact that you didn't really have any guidance, just like went in for it, showed how much courage that took for you and your band to just, go ahead and do it.
That's
you
so
talked
cool.
about you talked about how, there were times where you felt in the beginning days like, man, like, what does this mean? Right. Or like, is this official now? Like, can I consider myself an actual musician, artist? Like, what is this? What's going to happen next? Right. Obviously, there are highs and lows,
Yeah.
throughout that journey. And that goes with any entrepreneur, business owner, creative artist, whatever. I kind of want to know like what was going through your mind at that time, because as a musician, obviously sometimes when you put out YouTube videos or any type of content, there are going to be viral videos, and then there are going to be other videos that don't go viral, right? And so, for Brian and myself, like we understand how that feels too, right? We post on AHN every single day. Some stuff goes viral, some stuff doesn't. And
Yeah.
sometimes that like we start thinking about like, man, why is this not going viral?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how did you kind of perceive that during that time, and like what was going through your mind at that time of like just the hustling days and just like trying to get yourself out there and really think about like, what does this mean now? Am I an artist? Is this official?
Just
Yeah,
on
go
top
ahead.
of that too, and just like I want to hear about like having no structure at the time, because you basically can do whatever you want with your time, right? And
Yeah.
like putting yourself in a very disciplined mode, but then it
Yeah.
always leads to overworking or underworking, right? So I want
Yeah.
to hear about like how do you're basically pioneer a brand new empty space. No, it hasn't really been done in our community before. So
Yeah.
like how do you keep yourself moving?
Yeah. So a lot of layers, a lot of things there. First of all, to the whole views thing, like relying on numbers and likes and things like that. I early on, and I know I'm very secure in like my musicianship and my musicality. But I also know that I don't have necessarily that viral type of content. For example, like, I'm good friends with Tori Kelly, and she is a singer that's out of this world. If she sings the alphabet, that could go viral. I know for me, it took a little something different than that. And, the way I wanted to do that was through like different collaborations. I never felt like I had that solo type viral talent. I wanted to collaborate with people and show the connection I had musically with people. And so I knew it was going to be a slow burn from the start. Having Lucky, and then maybe When We Say, and some other original hits that didn't necessarily go viral, but like were big on my channel, like my top viewed, were some things that I was proud of. I knew that it wasn't always going to be like that, and it felt like I had to just be consistent in putting something out there, whether it was high quality or not. Some of the things that you think, like back in the day, I was like, oh, if we do a Justin Bieber song, this is gonna hit. You know what I mean? And then something random like, Falling Slowly from the movie Once ends up getting 1 million views instead of the Justin Bieber thing that you did, so it's really about that. Reminded me to stay true, of course, to what I do and what felt right musically. And if people can see that I'm enjoying a song, I think in the same way that, Maggie, you saw me glistening about talking to Alyssa, people can feel that through your art, I think, and you just kind of let that speak for yourself. But to the point of y'all posting on things every day and things like that, for me, as long as you're doing it, that means, I mean, you saying I have courage, like anyone who posts anything every day has a lot of courage as well. And we are just giving ourselves a fighting chance against the algorithms and the beasts that keep us from having to pay for our content to be seen. You know what I mean? So that's what I'll have to say to that. The ups and downs, though, as being a pioneer in the space, I didn't get to reflect on that until I took my hiatus in 2014, when I was just like, man, I've been going nonstop forever and doing cover song after cover song and trying to get people to, watch my videos and then, oh, here's another app, Twitter. What is Twitter? Now I gotta now post about where I'm at so people can come meet and greet me and say what's up. I started doing that, and then it became me showing a lot more of my personality, which I think is, 90% of maybe why people know me now is not only because of my music, but it's like they feel like maybe they connect to me somehow because I haven't come out with music in a long time, at least. So when they come up to me and they give me a hug and they're like, hey, so happy for you, I know that it's more than just about my music. So I know that sharing my personality on top of sharing content every week and doing music and things like that has helped me kind of create a really loyal and engaged fan base. So that's all been really positive things, to be consistent, to be on every platform posting, but also then to be real with yourself when you're doing too much or getting burnt out. And yeah, we all need that kind of break and reminder. I think that creative people are not used to having weekends in the way that like Alyssa does at her corporate job or when she's off the clock. You know what I mean? Creative people and Alyssa is creative as well, but when it comes to work, we feel like we got to be on all the time and tweet all the time and IG story and all this stuff. So it gets hard.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that too. I mean, that's something that we don't usually see or we don't usually hear about, right? Because we see you as the most glamorous side, like, oh, AJ's killing it, doing all these cool things, creating music. But the truthful side is like when we're alone, it's like it's a huge uphill battle in some ways. It's like you constantly ask yourself the question, like, what am I doing? Like, is this
Yeah.
worth it? And
Yeah.
you're waking up and always stay on. And I want to dive deeper into that too, because we have a very, I know we're called the Asian Hustle Network, right? The word hustle is important to us, but we mean it hustle in a good way. And I want to talk about like having like boundaries and balances in your life to kind of keep yourself moving forward, because at the end of the day, if you stop doing what you do, then it hurts your fan base, hurts us, it hurts yourself. And it's like, I know you mentioned consistency is key, but consistency without boundaries is just as detrimental to your success,
Yeah, it
right?
is. It is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I've just learned also in the latter half of the 2010s. Yeah, going super hard young as a 18-year-old to 25, I was just like saying yes to everything. It really wasn't until the last couple of years that I started saying no to colleges. To like, if I would be down to go week after week after week after week to all the college shows, especially like in freaking April, May coming up. It's a lot of like Filipino cultural nights, Asian American Heritage Month nights. And I would say yes to all of them because, of course I wanted to get out there. I wanted to meet my fans and be a positive inspiration, but also like financially, I'm like, yes, of course I'll say yes to all this stuff because that's how I'm going to make my money when I'm not doing shows. Right. So a big part of that is setting the boundaries energy wise for what to save energy for other things that I can pay attention to. So for like example, this podcast that I started with Alyssa, which is like something I want to grow. And I co-own a clothing company called Cuyate, which is Filipino American clothing company, things like that, where I'm like, this is long-term type stuff that I am now thinking of, you know? So yeah, the never ending hustle, I get tired thinking about it sometimes. And the other day I had just run into like a couple of weeks ago, I just run into some social media things that I was kind of in fire for. I had apologized about something that was being tweeted about or whatever, and catching fire with a community that was like, yo, F you for doing this, blah, 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 right? And I was just like, holy shoot, like this is crazy, because if in fact these people don't give me grace on this issue, then I have to shut my Twitter down. They will start attacking me on another thing, and then I lose all my social media, I started thinking about this downhill thing, and I'm like, man, all these years built, and if there's no context or nuance when people are attacking you or for a specific thing, then it could all be gone. And I remember posting on my close friends on IG, and I was like, man, I can't wait for the day where I don't have to actually rely on like social media and posting every day for me to make money or for me to make a living, because I've put myself out there for the last 16 years and I just want to break. You know what I mean? So I go through it all the time. There's seasons where I wish I never did this. And then there are times where I'm like, man, I'm so glad I did this, because this gives me the opportunities that I have today, so.
Yeah, and we appreciate you bringing that up too, and just being vulnerable on the subject. But it is absolutely true. I think a lot of people tend to look at influencers or people on social media and think that, it's so easy, because of course someone would say, I would rather do that than sit in the office for 8 hours a day.
I always say, careful what you wish for.
Yeah, it's just as hard, or maybe even harder, because you really have such a large community that you feel slightly responsible for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's just so much at hand, right? And part of you wants to make sure that you keep that community happy at all times, right? And you're right, like it could all go away at any moment. But we all know that AJ, you have such a pure heart, and
You
you
really
really
do.
lead by example, both you and Alyssa. And
Thank you.
it's just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
being responsible, yeah, sometimes it does feel like a burden. But you know what?
Right.
At the end of the day, I think about so I'm in this book in Rise,
Right.
for those listening on the audio, Rise by Jeff Yang, Phil Yu, and Philip Wang, which I'm sure y'all have heard of by now. But it came out yesterday, and I just I'm on the front cover, which is really cool. My picture here,
Oh.
and
Love it.
there's a cool they're like 2010s playlist, things like that. I'm featured on some certain things, and how they mentioned that I helped pave the way in an early thing and things like that.
Yeah.
And when fans come up to me and share how important my music was to them, and things like that, and them looking up to me, that the responsibility then feels just like it was all meant to happen, right? Like I had to be that for someone.
Yeah.
I think about that, even if I like will randomly go into like a Jersey Mike's or something, and like I didn't have to go there. I was like thinking about getting lunch somewhere else, but I was like, I need to get something fast. And then I meet someone who's really passionately like, oh my God, I've been wanting to meet you forever. And I'm like, oh, there was a reason I went into that Jersey Mike's. You know what I mean? So things like that, it becomes easy when, and then I also can see the fruits of my labor as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, music is like a universal language, and through your music, you're able to, portray this type of message that maybe you didn't even know that you were trying to get across, but it hit
Yeah.
someone maybe across the world in a different way, and you probably changed their lives, and those are the moments where you're like, this is why I do what I do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
AJ,
sorry.
go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead, Maggie.
I was gonna say, we know that you're an actor, a music director, as well as a dancer in local music theater shows, including, Tarzan. I kind of want to know, like, how does your creative process switch up when you're doing musical theater as opposed to when you're, writing songs or singing?
Yeah. I mean, the creative processes are different in the way that I like study things. In musical theater, there's a real discipline for, being right on cue every time. Even though there's a live aspect to it, it's like, you got to hit your mark, you got to say your lines, all of these things that are very like technical as well. So I'm very honed in when I'm in theater. Like when I'm in theater mode, I'm in rehearsal, I'm like, everything has to be a routine, opposed to like songwriting, which is like I'm just doing what I feel, at the time, and there's not really a deadline for it. But musical theater, which is why also I love it, is because of that discipline. But my mindset though stays the same. So for example, I was in a show at American Repertory Theater, which is all the way out in Boston, and I was doing a show with all of these Broadway vets, people who have been on Broadway and like off Broadway and national tours and things like that. And I would have conversations with them all the time about like, hey, why don't you sing on your Instagram? Like I would like your voice is so good. Like almost some of them are just, they think they can only do that stuff in a show, or at an audition. But I'm like, dude, you would kill it if you were posting on YouTube, all these things. So I'm always trying to bring my mindset of like, let's do something now and post it now, opposed to making it perfect and waiting for the perfect moment, which I love that I grew up with that mindset about not waiting for the call and just like doing it and putting yourself out there. So a lot stays the same, but then yes, when I'm studying and things like that, it's different.
I love that. Ryan, I think you had something to say. Sorry, cut you
No,
off.
it's okay. I just want to talk about a little bit earlier too, and everything you said is just so impactful, right? Because when Maggie and I struggle with Asian Hustle Network, it's crazy thing is that we look up to people like yourself, like came before us, right? We look up to you, look up to Phil, look up to a lot of people that did it. So like, I feel like your intangible effects are all there, and we really appreciate that, right? I think had you guys not laid a foundation for yourself and for the community, honestly, like I don't think Asian Hustle Network would be around, right? Because it's not just not something we register in our head. It's just not something that our Asian parents wants us to do. You go off the unbeaten path and then struggle a lot.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear that I was that for some people in our generation. And so I really have to also give credit to, first of all, like parents who are down with the art and things like that, but also parents who want the best for their child. So, in their mind, they can't bear to have an artist as a child, but also for the people who came before me. So, slow jam groups and R&B groups like Kai and Devotion, and Drop in Harmony, and these Asian Americans who were in music. And I remember downloading their music off Napster and Kazaa and things like that, and finding out they're Filipino. I'm like, oh shoot. And then also then downloading Jeremy Passion's version of My Boo, and I was like, oh shoot, he's Filipino and he sings and plays guitar. I do this too. And then discovering David Choi on YouTube, who put out a song called That Girl, and he's just sitting there on his laptop or whatever. It's like a sepia toned video of him playing a song that he wrote. And my friend showed it to me saying, yo, this guy's Korean. He's like a Korean John Mayer. Like, and I was like, what? This is crazy. This song is amazing. You know what I mean? So I was inspired by those people. And then, yes, laying the foundation was not something I did intentionally, but I'm glad it has made the effect that it did.
Oh man, That Girl. I remember that. It's like 2007 or something.
Yeah, dude. No, 2006, man.
Oh, 2006.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Woo. Dude, it brings back so much memories. As you like mentioned, more and more people. It's like that's a huge part of our upbringing, man. You guys are a huge part of that, and
Yeah,
I forever
nostalgia.
appreciate that. Yeah, forever appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So we have one or two questions left, right? The first question is like, what's next for you, AJ? Like, what do you hope to accomplish in the next few years? Because I know that you're engaged and you have other priorities in place now. It's like, what can we expect from you in like the next couple of years?
Yeah, well, I'm turning 33 next week. I don't know when this is getting
Happy
posted.
birthday.
Thank you, but
Happy
my
early
yeah,
birthday.
birthday's March 12th, and I think about the future a lot, as I mentioned earlier. So turning 33 is big for me. It's like, holy crap, I'm an adult, you know? So I guess what's next is to continue making these like legacy moves, right? Where it's like things that are hopefully will end up bigger than me, like Kuyate, the clothing company, things like that. I can make an impact in a different way than I have been. The podcast has been really something that, as I mentioned, I was going through some social media qualms and things like that. I'm like, been really putting my energy, honing it into this podcast, and which y'all know, just like talking to people and stuff and sharing that and listening to podcasts has been such a great pastime in the car and things like that. So that's something I'm really putting my energy in. And I just released also a lo-fi instrumental album called Red Roses and Chill. And I found the artist to my cover art in a similar group of, the Asian Creative Network, Asian Hustle Network. I'm sure I would have found them on there too, but it's that community aspect as well. It's all the same. We all want to give each other opportunities. And I was so glad that I got to find someone on Facebook to do that. Right. So things like that, I kind of want to do because producing a lo-fi instrumental album has been something I'm just doing at my desk, and I don't have to go to like different studios or like outsource strings from a friend or whatever to do that. So I'm hoping to continue to do stuff that I really, really enjoy. And unfortunately, sometimes when people meet me and they're like, man, when's your next album coming out? And, things like that. And I'm just like, man, right now I'm just kind of doing what I want to do. Not that I don't want to do music. And to some people, actually, I've been saying that I'm transitioning out of music, to be honest. But I don't mean it in a way where I'm leaving it behind. Like music's always going to be a part of me. It's just like I almost want to um, wear some other hats as far as like musical theater, acting. Been doing so many auditions, and in hopes that people would see me as more than a musician and as someone who is doing also many other things that he enjoys. So that's what's next for me.
Thank you for sharing that, AJ.
Yeah.
So I guess the final question we have is, what kind of message do you have to your fans listen to this podcast right now?
To my fans, I mean, to fans old and new, but specifically to the old fans who've been rocking with me forever, I just wanted to say that I appreciate them so much. And it's because of word of mouth and people at parties saying, hey, play this guy's music, or hey, this guy, he does music on YouTube and things like that. It's not because of radio play. It's literally not because of a machine. It's because of people telling their friends about it and sharing on their own social media and pages and in their lives and in their soundtracks and their promposals, in their regular proposals, which is crazy to be part of those now, and so yeah, it's been a journey, and everyone's growing with me, which is cool. And I just visited Hawaii um for to screen a film, Fabulous Filipino Brothers, that Dante Bosco directed and I scored. And I met multiple people on the street who literally were saying the same exact thing, where I grew up with you, middle school vibes, high school vibes. You helped me get through a breakup, blah, 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 blah. It's just, yeah, I love it. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I wish I was there to like witness that moment. So AJ, where can our listeners find out more about you and Kuyata and Sweet and Savory podcast online?
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram has been my main thing as far as like personal and all of my business aspects of my life. So Instagram.com. Ew, like who's using the website browser? Why did I say Instagram.com? It's just at AJ Rafael. I actually use the browser sometimes for Messenger,
I
guys.
use it too. I use it too.
Yeah, to message me.
Just faster.
At AJ Rafael on that platform. On TikTok, AJ Rafael Music. And then the Sweet or Savory podcast, you can find that on Google Podcast, Stitcher, Apple, Spotify, as I'm sure as this podcast is on all of those as well. And yeah, check out Red Roses and Chill. It's on all streaming platforms as well. Just type that up and use it to listen for your homework or for working or for yoga, whatever.
Awesome. We will leave all of that in the show notes. But AJ, it was so awesome having you on our show today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Maggie. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for all you do as well for the community.
Of course. Thank you, AJ. Really appreciate your story today.